Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. If you will, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Councilman Scott if he will lead us in the invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, to do business in the community we live and serve in. Father, we're very thankful for the season we're coming into of Thanksgiving, Lord. We just want to thank you for all the many blessings you pour upon us every day, Lord, the things that we don't even think about, Father. We pray that you'll be with those that are sick or not well in the community, Lord. Help us make decisions to make this place the best place there is to live and work. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, you have the agenda before you. There is one known addition to the agenda. I think that has been distributed at your seats. It's add to the consent agenda, item 17, consideration and approval to accept a stream restoration grant in the amount of $148,890 from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. An authorization to enter into a contract number 17-175-4060. Do I have a motion to add that to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Well, let me see, sir. We do have a consent agenda 16. Which is the new hire report from our human resources. So I do have a motion to add it. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Mayor, I make a motion, under consent agenda, items 5, 6, and 7 be moved to business items 6, 7, and 8.
Second. 5, 6, and 7. Councilman Lee?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion to move consent agenda items 5, 6, and 7 to business items. I have a second on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, under business item number 1, can that be moved to consent agenda, or are we required to vote on that?
It can be.
Business item 1, the Christmas tree lighting, we can move that to consent agenda if you so choose.
I make a motion, we move that to consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we'll move the tree lighting to the consent agenda. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay. All right. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Make a motion to approve it as amended.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. So the items that were 5, 6, and 7, which consideration and approval for donation to South Smithfield, consideration and approval for donation to West Smithfield, and consideration and approval for donation to Smithfield Selma has been moved to the business items. So if there's anyone here on that matter, just know that they have been moved to the business items and it's no longer on the consent agenda. Okay. All right. First of all, this evening we have a presentation. It's the consideration and approval to rename the Family Life Center and a proclamation dedicating the former Family Life Center in honor of Sarah McDaniel Yard. Gentlemen, we have that information in a packet. Do I have a motion to formally approve the new name of the Family Life Center?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. This time, present the proclamation. How are you? Anyone else that you would like to come forward with you this evening? Okay, come on up to the front. How you doing, sir? Good. So I'm just going to read the proclamation, Mrs. Yard. Proclamation honoring Sarah McDaniel Yard and the dedication of the Sarah Yard Community Center. Whereas the town of Smithfield recognizes the extraordinary contributions that Sarah McDaniel Yard has made to the East Smithfield community. And whereas in 1991, with her passion for addressing injustices, her love for education, her love for community and families, Sarah McDaniel Yard founded the Family Life Center of Smithfield. And whereas the Family Life Center was a program that grew out of the work of the National Council of Churches Black Families Ministry Project, whereby programs were developed to enhance the lives of individuals, families, and communities. Whereas under the visionary and heartfelt leadership of Sarah McDaniel Yard, the Family Life Center made an impact on a generation of families and children. And whereas under Sarah McDaniel Yard's direction, the Family Life Center provided after-school and summer youth programs, workplace training, educational opportunities, a meeting place for elders to fellowship, heritage festivals, celebrations, and a weekly food distribution center to those in need. And whereas Sarah McDaniel Yard has demonstrated in many practical ways her deep and genuine love for our community and the surrounding areas, and whereas as a token of the town of Smithfield's appreciation to the former Family Life Center, the former Family Life Center will be dedicated in Sarah McDaniel Yard's honor by changing the building's name to the Sarah Yard Community Center. Now, therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the town council, do hereby declare that the Family Life Center, located at 909 East Lee Street, be named the Sarah Yard Community Center. Please join me in congratulating. And as a reminder to everyone, there will be a formal ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony this Sunday, November the 19th at 3:00 p.m. at the Sarah Yard Community Center, located at 909 East Lee Street. Everyone is invited to join. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call upon Chief Powell to the front, and Officers Michael Jernigan and James Barber to come to the front. Presentation of the Life Saving Award to these gentlemen. That's great. Go ahead, sir.
Tonight, we want to make a presentation of our Life Saving Award to two of our officers, Officer Michael Jernigan and Officer James Barber. This award is one of our highest awards you can get at the police department. far as the Life Saving Award. First of all, you have to be nominated for this award, and then it goes before a review board, and then it's finally approved at that point in time. And pretty much I'll read the award to you. This is certified that Officer Michael Jernigan is hereby awarded this Life Saving Commendation Award for the life-saving first aid CPR he provided to a citizen on September 1st, 2017. The professionalism and compassion displayed by Officer Jernigan is not only a reflection of his dedication to public safety, but a credit to the Smithfield Police Department, awarded this day, September 25th, 2017, for CPR that he performed on a citizen, which ultimately saved that gentleman's life. Congratulations. That same afternoon, Officer James Barber was awarded this Life-Saving Commendation Award for life-saving first aid CPR he provided to a citizen on September 1st, 2017. And again, the professionalism and compassion displayed by Officer Barber is not only a reflection of his dedication to the public service and a credit to the Smithfield Police Department. Again, I want to say thank you to both officers.
Congratulations. Good job.
At this time, I'd like to administer the oath of office to a couple of new of our officers this evening. First up is Officer Samuel Adams. This is your father? Yes, sir. Thank you. We're coming here with what agency? Fuquay Marine. Nice to have you this evening, and you like hold the Bible? I, Samuel Adams, do undersign, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, that I will faithfully and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state, that I will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice, and that I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of my office as a law enforcement officer according to the best of my skill, abilities, and judgment, so help me God. Congratulations. Be safe. Congratulations. Okay, this time will Officer Christopher Van Halen come to the front, please? I, Christopher Van Halen,
I, Christopher Van Halen,
do undersigned, do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina,
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are
which are
or may be established
or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor
that I will endeavor
to support,
to support,
maintain,
maintain,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be alert
that I will be alert
and vigilant
and vigilant
to enforce the criminal laws
to enforce the criminal laws
of this state,
of this state,
that I will not
that I will not
be influenced in any manner
be influenced by
on account of personal bias
on account of personal bias
or prejudice,
or prejudice,
that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
execute the duties of my office
execute the duties of my office
as a law enforcement officer
as a law enforcement officer
according to the best of my skill,
according to the best of my skill,
abilities,
abilities,
and judgment.
and judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir. So gentlemen, we have a couple of public hearings on the agenda tonight. Before we get started though, Mr. Manager, would you like to introduce our new planning director?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to welcome Stephen Wensman to our community. He's our new planning director. He started November 1st, replaced Paul Embler, who retired back in July. Stephen comes to us from through Pinehurst via Lake Elmo, Minnesota, where he was planning director there in a very similar community, however, next to a very much larger suburb of St. Paul. We're very happy to have him here. He's already started digging in and getting to know everyone, and anyone who's interested in planning or development, please stop by his office and introduce yourself and take a few minutes to meet him. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, Stephen. Glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
So gentlemen, this is not a quasi judicial hearing, so there's no need to swear anybody in on this particular one. We'll go ahead and start with a public hearing, Twin States Farming, RZ-17-02. I'll turn it over to.
We open the public hearing.
Thank you. Okay. Motion and a second?
Yes, sir.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks. Motion approved.
Come here, Tim. Come here, Tim.
We're having a little trouble getting the music and all of the extra things going here, so if you bear with us for just a minute, we'll get it going.
We're down at the bottom right.
We can see this. Here?
Next one over. All right, thank you. Thanks for your patience. It's too small.
Yeah.
Wally the Ball.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a application by Twin States Farming Incorporated. Okay.
Is it on, Steve?
Oh, that would help. All right. The request is for a rezoning of land from the R20A Residential Agricultural Zoning District to the B3 Business Zoning District. There is 8.25 acres of land, and the land is currently undeveloped. We have a location map here, for those of you who don't know where it is, just to the west of downtown. You can see here, it's a vacant property between two business properties. A portion of the property is considered for the rezoning is within the 100-year floodplain, but from staff's analysis, it does not appear to be in the floodway. Any future development of the property would be subject to the Town of Smithfield flood damage prevention ordinances. And here's a map that shows the land that's in and out of the floodplain according to the GIS. The future land use map has identified this property as being in the conservation district. Adjacent properties within this corridor are currently zoned and developed as commercial uses. So staff believes the use of this site for commercial is contextually consistent and appropriate. The property considered for rezoning is immediately adjacent to other B3 district zone properties, so compatibility issues are unlikely. Planning Department has determined the application is consistent with the applicable adopted plans, policies, and ordinances, and recommends approval of the rezoning. The Planning Board on October 5th unanimously recommended approval. So Smithfield Council is requested to review the petition and make a decision on the rezoning request of approximately 8.25 acres from R20A to B3 zoning district. And are there any questions?
Do you have any questions?
I guess this current zoning is old, because it seems to be, the current zoning seems to be outdated.
Staff believes it was left in the zoning it is because of the floodplain, but when you're looking at it with some detail, there is portions of that property that appear to be outside the floodplain.
Any other questions? Concerns?
Was there any objection from adjacent property owners that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any.
Have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is anyone else in the audience want to speak for or against this? Yes, ma'am. If you'll come to the front, please. Just step back. If you will, please.
I'm June Wallace, and we own Wallace. I'm June Wallace, and we own Wallace Welding. That's all along that area, and we're really not opposed to that, because I do think encouraging business is a wonderful thing. But I will say, when Matthew came, 5 feet of water was in Wallace Welding. That is the lowest point on that side of the road, and so whatever they do, I'm for them developing it and adding industry or anything on our side of the river. But I do think that there's a drainage channel that goes down the back side of that, and whoever develops it, I think you need to be really careful that they don't somehow block that off or change it. My understanding is they'll have to raise whatever they put there 5 feet. I think that's how high Matthew came, and that would make sense, get it up out of that. But once you've raised that, you're going to certainly cause problems for anything downriver from that, and that would be our property. So those are just some things I'd like you to consider, not to zone it, but just to be careful about how you hold whoever develops it accountable.
Okay.
That would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Anyone else?
I'm for it. You mean,
Yes, sir, that's fine.
My name's Andrew Hodge. I'm with Adamson Hodge Engineering out of Clayton. And I'm just here to represent the landowner. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And to speak to Ms. Wallace, that would be something that would be taken care of during the site plan phase of it. We're just asking for rezoning right now.
Well, to better answer her question, she had a question of how it would affect her if you did raise it. Is that what your question was, Ms. Wallace? I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Your question was how would it affect your business if he raised the business?
Right now, we don't have a business.
Well, I understand that,
I think
but
the water nearly put us out of business.
I understand that.
But I would like to know how elevating, I don't know how big a structure they're planning to put, but once you do an impervious, once you put cement for a parking lot, and I don't know what that will do. I just would like for whoever is developing it to do some sort of a study to be sure that it doesn't, in order to solve that person's problem of getting rid of property, that it doesn't cause other people's problems.
Are you able to address that question, sir? To Ms. Wallace?
Can you come up to the microphone, please? And if you could summarize what she said.
So actually, I think, Ms. Wallace, you just wanted to kind of express your concerns of some things in the area, right, that have gone on. To your point, as far as stormwater would be handled as part of, this is strictly just a rezoning, which I think you understand, and should time come that someone would like to develop that piece of property in the future, then stormwater would be something that we look at as part of our overall process. Is that fair, Steve?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to try to
Yeah.
clarify the question, and I agree, when the site plan's done, obviously there'll be more down and dirty details there, but.
Right, and I think that's what Ms. Wallace is concerned is
Okay.
the stormwater, which that should be addressed and looked at as part of any future, any development that's brought to us. Okay? Any other questions from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close? Motion to close the public hearing. Motion. Second. And a second, all in favor, say aye. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move we approve findings of fact 1 through 8.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the finding of fact. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Move we approve the request.
Second.
Have a motion to approve the rezoning to B3. And a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, the next item this evening is the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And this is special use request, Atlantic Coast Pipeline SUP-1709. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a 42-acre temporary contractor storage yard on property located within an R20A zoning district. The property considered for approval is located at the northwest side of Mallard Road, approximately 600 feet northeast of the intersection with Old Mallard Road. The property is further identified as a portion of Johnston County Tax ID 15K11019F. If there's anyone in the audience that'd like to speak for or against this, please stand now and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlemen, do
I
I
move
have
we open the public hearing.
a motion and a second to open the public hearing? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Public hearing. Turn it over to Steve.
All right, thank you. So the applicant is the Atlantic Coast Pipeline LLC. The request is for a special use permit to allow a temporary contractor yard. It's 42 acres of site area. The zoning is currently R20A. It's an agricultural residential district. The location of this property is in the south portion of the ETJ, located here. This is the site. Just want to point out that there is a band of woodlands through here and a low area kind of adjacent to it. So this use, proposed use, is allowed as a special use in the R20A zoning district. The future land use shows this site as commercial, the future land use map, I should say. They're proposing 3 access points from Mallard Road, proposing 300 gravel parking spaces on the site. They're only using a portion of the site. It's a very large site. They're going to use a smaller portion, and I'll show you the site plan in a moment. The layout is compliant with the landscape buffer requirements. However, I do want to point out that the previous planning director did allow a screening fence in lieu of landscaping because of being a temporary use. So I just want to make that point. There's a fence screening requirement for that buffer yard. Sorry, there's a screening requirement with a buffer yard, and the fence is going to be installed in lieu of. Oh, one more. County Water and Duke Electric Services are located within the right-of-way on Mallard Road. So this is a site plan. It's a little bit hard to read on this projector here, but this is essentially the main portion of the site that'll be impacted. There's going to be some equipment storage in here. They're going to use this area for topsoil storage. They're going to scrape the good topsoil off, store it in that location, and probably seed it for erosion control until they restore the site. This area shows the parking for employees, and there's also storage containers, and then this is the contractor yard for the various welding and other activities that they might be doing. So the proposal is compliant with the setback requirements in the zoning district. As I said, there are 3 driveways for Mallard Road. They're using 13 acres, of which would be gravel impervious surface. So that's for the parking area and the yard area. There'll be multiple Connex storage containers. These are those metal corrugated storage containers. There will be an above-ground fuel tank with a secondary containment system. The plans we have are more of a conceptual nature, and there will be more detailed plans required. You'll see a condition of approval regarding that. There will be 7 modular office units. As I said before, a fence will be provided for screening, and there's also the natural woodlands that I pointed out initially that'll screen the outdoor storage from the public. There will be no public utility connections. They're going to be using portable facilities for the temporary use. They're proposing 4 stormwater detention basins at present. Staff believes that the temporary storage yard at this location should not pose a compatibility issue with the surrounding land uses. Because the area is rural, it will be screened from adjacent residential subdivisions to the west and from Mallard Road. And again, the screening for Mallard Road will primarily be that fence that I discussed. The planning board held a public hearing on the 5th of October and determined that the proposal was consistent with the plans, policies, and ordinances of the city, and voted unanimously to recommend approval. The concerns mentioned at the commission meeting were the need for proper spill containment for maintenance work areas, employee parking, and a lack of detail on the site plans. During the hearing, only the applicant spoke. There was no public testimony. So the planning department has determined that the proposal is consistent, as I said before, with plans, policies, and ordinances. And should the town board find that all the findings of facts can be affirmatively made, that the application be approved with the following conditions. And I've listed 7 conditions. At the planning commission, the only condition listed was that the stormwater plan be submitted. Yet these other items were also talked about in the whole process, and I just wanted to bring them forward as conditions, and I did talk to the applicant about it, and I'll read them. One is that the fence be 8 foot tall, opaque, and properly maintained. Up to this date, we've not had clarity on what that fence is going to be, so I wanted to provide a little bit of clarity. That the temporary use be limited for a period of 3 years. It wasn't clear until speaking with the applicant exactly how long that temporary period would be. So 3 years, so by end of 2020, they're proposing the use to go away and the site would be restored. Submit a revised detailed site plan for town staff approval. As I said, the plans are pretty sketchy. We don't know exactly where the containment area would be for the spill, those sort of things. More detailed site plans, making sure they're compliant with all the ordinances would be needed, and staff would then review that for approval. Number 4, complete a stormwater management plan for approval. That is the condition that the Planning Commission did recommend. An erosion control plan, that is going to be required by the state, but I just want to make sure it's a condition. Submitting a site remediation plan, basically just some document that shows that they are going to remediate the site afterwards, back to agricultural use, scraping the gravel off, putting the topsoil back down and seeding it. And then the last item is posting a bond for the site remediation, so they have some skin in the game, so they have to come back, restore the site, at which point their bond would be released. And then, should the council approve this, a next motion would be to approve the special use permit, would be to recommend approval of the site plan. Currently, site plans require planning commission and council approval. Any questions?
I saw in the packet that if we approve this as is, that it would be on a 6-month basis, and they would have to come back for an additional 6 months. Is that the way I understand it?
That is how the code reads. Staff is probably not going to give it a lot of scrutiny until the 3-year period. I mean, essentially, nothing's going to change in the 6-month periods. It's going to essentially be a 3-year temporary use. I mean, the code does say a temporary use every 6 months, it needs to be renewed. Staff would administratively just renew it.
My question in my mind is, why would we not approve it for a year instead of 6 months? They go in there and start doing all that work. It's gonna take them a couple of months to get it all built. That you're saying our ordinance says every 6 months.
Yeah, it's in the ordinance that it's 6 months. Most temporary uses are for short periods, and the code is written to really address those. This is something a little bit different. The cycle for this site, there's gonna be a little bit of activity, and then there'll be a spike of high activity. I think they said in spring of 2019, and then it'll taper off through 2020, and then they expect to be done.
The 6-month review, I'm sorry, the 6-month review, that's done administratively? Is that done, do they have to come back to you, or is that something you put on your calendar just to?
In this case, it'd just be something that we just handle administratively. I don't have any expectation for the applicants to do anything in this case.
No application fee is what it says, but my question is, why don't we just give them a year and staff won't have to be involved in it? Because it sounds like it's gonna do it for 3 years. Every 6 months, they're gonna have to come back and reapply. Is that the way I understand it?
We're not gonna require any reapplication. So essentially, I would just look at it as a three-year permit. You know, we might go out every year, every so many months to make sure the fence is still looking good, that kind of thing, but essentially, as long as there's no problems, it'll just continue for the 3 years without issue.
But according to your ordinance, we have to do it every 6 months, correct? Is that what you're telling me?
That's what the ordinance says.
That was my point.
I think what he's saying is that this hardly ever comes up, and he doesn't want to amend the code. You'd have to amend the code.
Moving on.
Any other questions at this time? Steve? Okay. Does the applicant have any other information that they would like to share at this time?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name's Hal Kitchen. I'm a lawyer from Wilmington with the McGuire Woods Law Firm, and I'm here tonight on behalf of my client, Atlantic Coast Pipeline, LLC. Very briefly, I'd like to just introduce a few individuals who are available for any questions you might have about the details of the site. First, Mr. Min So is a senior engineer with Dominion Transmission out of Bridgeport, West Virginia. Mr. Bruce McKay is here with us, Senior Engineer Policy Director for Dominion Energy, and somebody who's spent quite a bit of time in eastern North Carolina over the last 2.5 years. And finally, Mr. Dennis Egger, who is the Regional Construction Manager for Atlantic Coast Pipeline. He's been in this business for 30 years, and when the construction gets underway here in Johnston and up into Nash counties, he will be the Regional Construction Manager for that work. So these gentlemen are the experts. If you have any technical questions, they'll be glad to answer them, and they've all been sworn. I would just like to say that we appreciate the opportunity to have you all consider our request for this temporary use. The site is 42 acres, but as Mr. Winsman has pointed out, a substantial amount of the site, probably almost a third of it, will be preserved as open space and buffer to buffer the residences to the southwest of the site. There will be a fence. I think in our application we talked about a 6-foot fence, but Mr. Winsman has asked, and we're perfectly satisfied with an 8-foot fence instead. And we'll work with staff to make sure that the fabric that provides the screening on the fence is something that the town is in agreement with. All of the conditions Mr. Winsman has suggested are perfectly fine with us. The only small exception, I suppose, we would mention is the final requirement, the 7th condition, which is that of a bond. And we only mention it because, and this is something that I had not shared with Mr. Winsman until tonight, but our FERC certificate, that's the certificate from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that is sort of the big certificate we have to get before we can start this pipeline, which was issued back on October 13th, I believe, will require us to restore this site, Mr. Marshall's site, to its pre-construction condition. And we anticipate, even though the erosion control permit has not been issued yet by the state, in our plans, we have a condition that we would restore the site after we're done with the use at the end of 2020, and we anticipate that'll be part of that permit as well. So that's the only small concern we would have with the conditions. We'll do whatever this council needs us to do, and we appreciate your consideration on that. But this is a great site. It's great not only because you want these sites. These sites are primarily areas for construction workers to muster in the morning, to have their meeting before they go out into the field. There will be a fair number of folks on the site first thing in the morning, and then they will go out into the field. Some of them will go in vans or maybe small buses, and those folks will have to come back at the end of the day to get their cars to go back to their hotels or wherever they're living. But others will drive their own cars out into the field. And so once they're gone in the morning, my understanding is once they're gone 7:30 in the morning, they're gone for the day. And at that point forward, there will be a managerial staff of, say, 30 people working in these temporary offices that will be out there. There may be maintenance on some of the equipment, and some of that might, by necessity, happen overnight from time to time, but it won't be something that's typical. So it's good that this is close to the pipeline itself. It's about a half-mile away, I think, from the location of the pipeline construction that will come through, about half-mile down Brogdon Road. But it's also good in that it provides access to 2 different exits onto I-95, and the advantage there is that some of these workers will be going to locations in Nash County. Some will be going to locations farther south in Johnston and maybe even into Sampson County at certain times of the project. And that proximity to 95 gives people an opportunity to get right out to 95 and get off the local roads and off DOT roads to the greatest extent possible. So that's why this is such a great site. We appreciate Mr. Marshall working with us. We anticipate being a very good neighbor in Smithfield and Johnston County. We look forward to getting the project started, getting online, and becoming a great neighbor and taxpayer going forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has, and even better than that, bringing up some of my experts if there's a desire for them to answer questions. But otherwise, we just appreciate your consideration of our request for this temporary use.
There's gonna be a lot of heavy vehicles coming and going.
Not a lot. There may be some. So there will be, this is not the only yard that will be in this area of construction. There are also what we call satellite yards. And those sites will maybe have a little more material storage, like you might see more stacks of pipe before they actually go out into the field. But there will be some equipment, some heavy equipment that you would imagine you'd see out there stored on the site when, for whatever reason, it's not being used out along the alignment itself. So there'll be some of that. And there is an area on our site plan sort of towards the rear back there beside the solar farm and the Duke Energy line that is not going to be gravelled, but it's designated for equipment storage. Of course, we want that equipment out in the field, not in the contractor yard. It's not really doing us a lot of work when it's in the yard.
In terms of the bond, the special use permit goes with the land. So, in respect to the bond, if for some reason your client did not comply with site remediation, that actually falls back on Mr. and Ms. Marshall, doesn't it?
Well, it could, I suppose.
I assume y'all will have a
in
lease
big
agreement
trouble.
that addresses that. But
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with the lease terms, but I don't know that I've contemplated that possibility because I'm so sure that my client will comply with its responsibilities. It
my
would
point
be
was,
very,
it's sort of secured because we got the property.
right.
We got 42 acres that will be subject to the special use.
I think my clients will promise that you all and Mr. Marshall will never have to find out the answer to that question. But I appreciate it.
I just got a question as far as security, after hours and also during the hours of operation, what we gotta do as far as the security?
Yes, sir. And I can bring Mr. Egger up here if there's a desire to have him testify. What I'm told by Mr. Egger is that typically there will be a night security, at least one night security officer on duty just to sort of keep an eye on things. I don't know that there are not probably a lot of things that'll be stored on the site that somebody would be interested in taking, but nonetheless, there will be nighttime security there. In the daytime, I think that even though there won't be hundreds of people on the site, there will be, several dozen on the site, and of course, they'll be looking out for their material as well. So, pretty close? Okay.
Any other questions, council, at this time?
What's the timeline over, just as a quick summary of what you're seeing when y'all will be kind of done?
This portion, this is what we call construction spread number 9, and that's basically Johnston County and most of Nash and maybe a little bit of Sampson. It is scheduled for the real construction in 2019 and 2020. So it's got to be done by the end of 2020, and that's why we don't seek any permission to use this site after the end of 2020. So it's possible that they'll be able to start some of the work in 2018, but because they'll be very busy to the north and very busy to the south, it's not likely that you'll see actual dirt being dug out of the ground around this area until 2019. There will be, of course, we do want to be able to get on the site and make sure it's ready when it's construction time here. And there may be some vendors of the pipeline who are serving the entire state, like, for example, if there's a food vendor and the food vendor wants to store some food trucks or something halfway in between the work going on up in Halifax and the work going on in Robinson, we'd like them to be able to use the site in 2018 if the site's prepared. But other than that, the construction traffic, we expect to be 2019, 2020. And of course, our goal, my client's goal is once they get here and once they're working, they're going to be working. They're not going to be, it's not an 8-hour day for these guys. They get in early. This is when the sun's shining, they're out there working because they want to get in and out and do it efficiently and be out of everybody's hair.
Any other questions at this time? Mr. Kitchen, do you and/or the applicants agree with the testimony Mr. Winston presented earlier?
We do.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that's been duly sworn like to speak for or against this? Have a motion to close the public
I have
hearing?
one more question. Are you satisfied with the bond, with his explanation of their?
The explanation makes sense. I'm not aware of, I mean, it's his word. I wasn't party to the earlier discussions. You know, I got to this project quite late, but if that's the case, it makes sense that the remediation's taken care of.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
A motion to close the public hearing.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay, gentlemen, we have the findings of fact go through, or have a motion to approve or deny all of them at one time.
I move we approve all findings of fact.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
I move we approve the request with all the conditions set forth on the screen except for the bond.
What motion?
So your motion is?
No, except the bond.
Except the bond, I'm sorry, I apologize, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve the request with the conditions, I think it was 1 through 6, I believe, with the exception, whatever number it is, with the exception of requiring that a bond be taken out. All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, gentlemen, we have another piece of this, which is to actually approve the site plan, Atlantic Coast Pipeline SP-17-13. Turn it over to Mr. Winston.
Mayor and council, as I explained during the prior presentation, the site plan that you have is very conceptual, but we are requesting approval. And as you saw in the previous conditions, a condition of the site plan, the special use permit, is that they come back with a more detailed site plan for staff approval. So staff is in favor of having this site plan approved now and greater scrutiny be given by staff moving forward.
Okay. Any questions on the site plan, council? What's the pleasure of the council?
I move we approve the request.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary site plan. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, at this time, we come to a point in our agenda for citizens' comments. If there's anyone wishing to speak during this time, if you will, please come forward. I don't see anyone for citizens' comments, so we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Gentlemen, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended earlier?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. So, gentlemen, there was something at our place this evening about the minutes from last time. There were just some corrections. Just want to make sure that you've had a chance to see that. Yes, sir, because that's part of the consent agenda as well.
It's one little phrase in red.
Added a
Everybody okay with that? That was a recommendation from the town attorney, just some correction to the minutes there as part of the consent agenda. So that will be included in as part of the consent agenda. If I see no objections.
I move we approve the items on the consent agenda.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, we'll move on to business items at this time. We're going to go to one that we moved from the consent agenda, which is the consideration and approval for a donation to South Smithfield Elementary School in the amount of $500. It's found on page 107, I think, for your reference in the agenda. I will turn that over to the manager. Yes, 107.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request from South Smithfield Elementary School. They requested a donation to assist them with playground equipment. Through the discussions with the council, we settled on a $500 amount. It seemed to be applicable and amenable to everyone here. Therefore, it is my position, my request to approve a $500 donation from monies that was originally budgeted for donations to Smithfield schools in the amount of $500.
Mr. Mayor, I know last year we gave $2,000. This is, we can kind of just incorporate all these together. Last year we gave $2,000 to the robotics club at Smithfield Selma High School. And, here again, they're asking for, another $2,000. Was there a follow-up on, basically what that $2,000 was spent for? I know there are more clubs at Smithfield Selma High School, that may need money, but, here again, it's the robotics club. And, right now, looking at these three requests, you got a club at one school, and then we're talking about two schools at just $500. And, with this being a total of $3,000, I would just look at giving each school $1,000. That would be my request. I feel like West Smithfield and South Smithfield should deserve more. It's a whole school versus a club at Smithfield Selma High School. So that would be my request.
So your motion, what about robotics?
He's saying 1,000 for
That's
that.
me.
You're suggesting 1,000 per entity.
Right.
But the same amount of money.
$3,000, right.
Same overall amount of money.
So that's your motion?
That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to provide $1,000 each to South Smithfield, to West Smithfield, and to the Smithfield Selma robotics team. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, the only reason I want to oppose is because we're here on request. I certainly understand the motion, and I do not disagree with the motion at all, but and we've talked that going forward, we need to have a standard, and maybe that's it. But
Well, at some point, we need to set the standard because, we're gonna keep going. It's gonna get to budget time, it's gonna happen again, then it's gonna be again. And so I just feel like at this point, why not give the schools $1,000 versus a club $2,000 when we gave them that last year. So that's, but if we're gonna do that, we need to go ahead and stop talking about it, let's do it.
Well, in the same.
I think the motion's already passed.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, in the same tone, the other clubs have got to step up to ask for money. The Robotics Club did make a presentation 2 years ago.
Did they come back this year?
They asked.
And to do every club at Smith & Salmon to come back. I mean, everybody
I don't
may
know,
not be
but
privy to
it's
the
up the
information.
clubs in my opinion, it's up to the club to step up to the plate and ask for donations. I don't disagree with what your motion was, I voted for it, but fact of the matter is, they did step up and ask for that. So if other clubs want to do that, they need to take.
And then I made a motion during the budget time.
As the Robotics Club.
So why did we put, giving the basketball team $500? That became a business item automatically, but this was a consent item. So this, I mean, let's be fair about it, you know, that's all my thing. Motion passed, let's move on.
All right, so we do have, the motion did pass for $1,000 each. So to the others who made a lower request, congratulations. To those who made a higher request, you got $1,000. So, all right, thank you very much. Okay, gentlemen, we'll move on to the next business item, which is the consideration and approval to accept the Golden Leaf Grant in the amount of $70,000. Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a fairly straightforward grant. It's $70,000 from Golden Leaf Foundation to be used for engineering fees to further our stormwater plan, primarily to plan around some of the devastation that occurred following Hurricane Matthew and the flooding that occurred. Our biggest concern is that the hurricane changed some of our stormwater areas and our stormwater distribution points, and we want to evaluate those before we start doing any type of construction that might make something else worse, similar to what Ms. Wallace had talked about earlier. As we build construction, we don't want to dump more water in someplace else. When we fix one problem, create another. So the goal behind this $70,000 is to make sure we don't do that. We had originally asked Golden Leaf for $200,000 for this purpose. We were awarded $70,000. This is money that would be considered revenue for us. It will have to be used within the next year. We will be needing to pay this out of pocket to begin with and seek reimbursement. So that means that we will have to either use fund balance or contingency funds to start with, and then replenish that as we request, as we provide documentation that we have fulfilled the grant requirements. That means that in December, you would see a budget amendment, if this is approved, this grant's approved, to allow for the revenue as well as the expenditure.
Okay. Any questions for Mike? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
That's correct, and it should all take place this fiscal year, both the reporting as well as the refunds.
What's the pleasure of the board? Make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next business item is consideration and approval to expend $5,374 for the emergency replacement of one boiler on the roof of the public library. Mike?
This is also pretty straightforward. The library had a boiler go out under our memorandum of understanding between us, the library, and the county. The county has the authority to go ahead and do what emergency repairs need to be done in order to get those types of essential services back up and running, and that's what they did. They replaced the boiler already at a total cost of $17,436. Our memorandum of understanding for these emergency type repairs include an agreement that the library pay the first $4,000, and then we split the remaining amount, 40% to the city, 60% to the county. Our 40% is $5,374.40. That money is unbudgeted as an emergency, as it is an emergency expense, and it would need to be moved out of contingency with a budget amendment to follow if so approved by the council.
Any questions regarding the library? Have a motion?
Is this something we need to possibly look at for the future?
As far as what's,
Budgetary items?
to budget money for the, extra money for the library? Well, we can, except for then we're tying up money that may not be used. This is exactly what we have contingency funds for.
Okay.
And we have over $200,000 of unspent contingency funds. We can easily take this out of there. And that's exactly why we have them, is for this type of situation.
I move we approve the request.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, the next business item is consideration and approval to enter into an agreement with Withers and Ravenel to conduct the street condition study. Lenny and Bill?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, Town Council. Our past streets resurfacing projects utilized the 2006 pavement condition survey. During last year's resurfacing project, several of the streets were moved around to accommodate the constant change and deterioration of the pavements. Council recognized the need for the new study and graciously appropriated money for a new study in this year's budget. On August the 4th, the Public Works Department sent out requests for letters of interest to several engineering firms. On the deadline, August 31st, we received 2 letters of interest back from interested firms, Withers, Ravenel, and SEPA. Staff recommended reviewed both companies and selected to meet with Withers Ravenel for a fee proposal. Withers Ravenel fee proposal of $26,860 came in under the $30,000 budgeted in this year's budget. The study will include surveying the conditions of the city-owned streets, the data collection of the streets, the reporting and software and training on said software for future projects. Staff recommends awarding the pavement condition study to Withers Ravenel in the amount of $26,860. If council approves staff's request tonight, the project will be completed within this 4-month time frame and in line for the spring pavement projects. I would be happy to answer any questions you guys may have on the subject.
Any questions for Lenny or Bill? I have a motion.
I got a question on the paving process. Some of the roads that got paved, especially over on Martin Luther King, is there where the Innovation Academy is. Are they gonna put the yellow lines and the school sign back in the road? I mean, I noticed it's not there, but it was there before the roads were paved and stuff, but there's no yellow line, there's no marking that says school. So I was just wondering.
Yes, yes, we will.
You said we would?
Yes, sir, we will.
At what time frame? I mean, the roads got paved way.
Obviously, Councilman, we're remiss in not replacing that as it happened, and we'll get on it as soon as we can.
Just to be fair, though, I think there was some consideration regarding that school as far as the future use as actually being a school.
But even just the yellow lines, ain't not, just forget the school, just the yellow lines in the road.
I know, I got it. But
We just don't forget that.
all right, thank you, sir. All right,
Make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Carries. Next item is consideration and approval to reappoint Mike Fleming or to appoint David Johnson to the Johnston County Economic Development Committee representing the town of Smithfield. You want to do that, Mike, or Shannon? Which one?
I can go.
You want to
through.
take it? Okay.
We have a position on the Economic Development Board for the county. Currently, Mike Fleming has filled that position. He's filled it admirably. He is asked to be reappointed to that position. We do have a second person, Mr. David Johnson. You have his information in your packet, who is also asked to be a part of that committee. Staff would recommend leaving Mr. Fleming in that position because continuity is extremely important with economic development. We have no reason to replace him in that position. And that would be our recommendation moving forward.
And not David Johnson.
Not David Johnson. Not because David Johnson isn't worthy and wouldn't be a good person for that position, but when talking to the county about its economic development, and I believe, Mr. Harris, you sit on that board as well.
Right.
What they told us was continuity and consistency on that board is very important to them.
True.
Could there possibly be more than one, or is it just?
No, it's, they designate how many positions we get.
That being said, David would be good to get involved in a town committee.
It would be our hope that we could encourage him to use his services elsewhere.
So we're voting on to make Mike our choice.
That would be up to the board to decide which person they want to fill this position going forward.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reappoint Mike Fleming. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
That is it? Because we put all three of those together.
All right, gentlemen, that's the last business item that we have this evening. We come to the point of council members' comments. Any comments from the council? Seeing none.
Yeah, I got a few I need to make.
Go ahead, Mr. Councilman Lee.
Actually, Ms. Wallace, who came in earlier, she was one of my former teachers at Triple S, and one of the key words she hit on was accountability. And, you know, already, you know, and the excuse with the yellow line, with the pavement marketing, over in East Smithfield. And, you know, I'll let you know, Lenny, I'm back. Because during the campaign season, I found out a lot of what you did. I'm just letting you know I'm back, okay? And you should have been fired a long time ago. When you sent me that text message, when you called, that's when you should have been fired. You should have been fired a long time ago when you try to accuse other people of doing something.
Councilman Lee.
I'm talking. It's councilman's comments. I'm gonna talk. And part of it goes to you because there's no accountability coming with you.
That's
you
right.
make excuses for everybody. That's what you do. I talked to the engineer. We talked about the flooding in East Smithfield and Smith Collins Park. I haven't seen that plan yet, but you made an excuse for him.
Councilman
The
Lee.
accountability starts with you.
That's right. Everybody out there works for me, and the buck stops with me.
No, it
If you
don't
don't
stop.
like that anything they do, it's my responsibility.
He out campaigning for other people,
apologize
asking
for
other
anything
people to
I
run
have.
against me. I'm back. And you should have been fired a long time ago. It's gonna be some accountability with you, and it starts with you.
That's
Or
right.
don't you can go.
Yes, sir.
I bet you that. I bet you that. I bet you that. It's gonna be some accountability in town of Smithfield. I bet you that. I've been here long enough. These people have suffered long enough. But I'm back. I'm back. Next meeting, I'm gonna let the people come in here, the same people he tried to get it run against me. They'll come in and talk. Stop making excuses for him. That's what you need to do. Tim Kerrigan, get on your job, because he's not doing right. It's gonna be some accountability in Smithfield. I bet you that. I bet you that.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the council? So I did want to just say, just for the benefit of the people in the audience, regarding the school request, during our budget session, we had requests from schools, and the council thought it was very important that we support our local schools. And so therefore, the council agreed to set aside money in this year's budget to be distributed to school systems, schools within our municipality. So I just wanted to be clear, those clubs, schools sent requests in to the council. Those requests were exactly what was stated, and then it's up to the council to approve or deny those requests. But I just wanted to be clear that, not disagreeing with what the motion that Councilman Lee made earlier, but I did want to make it clear that those were the actual requests that came in for those amounts of money. So South Smithfield requested $500, West Smithfield requested $500. So
The West Smithfield principal said she was told that she would get $500. She didn't request that. She told me that tonight. They didn't personally request that. They was told that they needed to ask for $500. So it came from somewhere else.
So-
The principal said it tonight. So evidently somebody threw that amount to her. So
So Councilman Lee, I'm not sure who did that, but I personally spoke to her, so I can tell you what I did tell her
Okay,
while
that's
I
what
was,
she said
yeah,
tonight.
while I was
Okay.
presenting to a class there, okay? She asked me, and I said, make a request for the amount of money. And then she sent it in to the manager. I did not tell her to get, just for clarification, it didn't come from me, because I personally spoke to her,
she
okay?
said tonight the request was for $500. That's what she told me.
Right. And that is what they made, so anyway, I just wanted to make that clear to people out here, is that's the reason why you saw what we were doing this evening, giving money to the schools, because we feel like it's very important for us to back our community schools, and that's what we're trying to do here as a council, so. Okay, any other comments?
Mayor, I have a couple comments. I'd like to reach out and thank the Downtown Developments. They had a Touch a Truck event, brought a lot of people in our community. They worked with the Women's Club and a couple other groups, and it was very nice. And also I don't know if anybody's not had a chance to go to the Ghost Walk that the Heritage Center puts on downtown. It's remarkable. Very well turned out event. Seems like it's growing. It's about the third time I was able to attend, and the attendance was very well and it was very nice. Brings a little bit of history and a little bit of, very interesting topics for our community. It was very well attended. I just want to tell them thank you for that.
Last thing I gotta say, the Family Life Center is first on the manager's report. Ribbon cutting this weekend. What are we doing as far as advisory commission? It's gonna open, then what? I know they're supposed to be in some kind of advisory commission that we talked about at the last meeting. So where are we on that? It's gonna open, we're gonna open the doors, then what are the activities and stuff? Because I know I talked to the chairman, Elisa Bazell, and she said she hadn't heard anything from anybody since that last meeting that we had. But we're supposed to have some kind of advisory committee going on where we could talk about the different activities that we talked about that day.
Yeah, I'm not sure what advisory committee you're talking about. I don't think one's ever been created. I do believe.
We have a chairman, Lisa Bazell, at the last meeting that was over there. I don't even know if you was there.
I was at every meeting for the Family Life Center.
Well, we talked about the advisory commission then. Travis, Councilman Scott is the one that brought it up. We named Lisa Bazell as the kind of the chairman in that meeting.
Yeah. I do recall the discussion of creating one, but I don't believe one was ever formally created.
Okay.
But we are working very hard to get the center open. I think staff deserves a round of applause for all the work they've done over there, as well as many of the volunteers that have stepped up to work there, including yourself.
So we're gonna open, and then what? I mean, what's next after we open?
We're still working on it, Councilman.
Well, that's a park and rec.
It is. It's a park and rec facility, and we met on it this morning and discussed some of the issues. We don't even have all of our equipment in the building yet.
I know I was at the last meeting I went to, Gary, that y'all had over there, and there were people who raised their hand and talked about things they'd like to see, and the children got to speak, and I would say that, y'all put your heads together, obviously Councilman Lee's interested in it, and come up with a structure for programs over there so that we can get off on the right foot. But I think that building, it had come a long way when I was there. I've not seen it. And I'm looking forward to being over there Sunday afternoon. But I think Park and Rec needs to get with whoever, obviously councilman, in that area, and let's get off on the right foot, which I think we will.
Okay. All right. Also, we do have two councilmen-elect here tonight. Congratulations to Mr. David Barber and to Mr. David Stevens. Gentlemen, thank you for being here this evening, and congratulations. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. Councilman Scott, Manager Scott.
I got one comment.
Sorry.
Contrary to some of the remarks tonight, and I do respect everybody's remarks, I think the staff works your tail off. I appreciate everybody sits those two tables, I appreciate your efforts, Mark. And speaking of accountability, I think it's gotten a whole lot better since you've been on board. Everybody has their own opinions of how things are ran and how things should be ran, but I think we got a good staff, and I appreciate everything you've done for the last 4 years for me in this council. So, keep doing what you're doing. And, Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? All right.
Thank
Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I don't have a whole lot of additional announcements tonight. If you go by the J.C. Kitty Park on 2nd Street, you'll see the playground equipment is being installed today. Looks very nice. Should hopefully be done by the end of the week, maybe next week. We also are continuing moving forward on the inclusion park over at Community Park. We did run into a little bit of a change order that we had to do there in order to create some additional drainage where some of the equipment was going to go. Most of the equipment has been delivered and is over there at the community park ready for installation. Once we get done adding the drainage, we will be able to install that equipment and stay on schedule. That's very exciting for the community and all the people who are looking to use that park. Councilman Lee already mentioned the dedication on the 19th at 3 o'clock at the Sarah Yard Community Center. We also have upcoming events on December 2nd. At 9 o'clock, we have the Grinch Run, which starts at Community Park and runs down the Greenway path. Price of admission is to bring an unwrapped new toy to give out during the holiday season. So please try to attend that event if you can. You can walk, you can run. There's also a short 1-mile walk prior to the beginning. If you have children, small children or something, you want to participate. Feel free to dress up. Any Grinch gear is acceptable, as well as any Christmas attire. December 7th from 5 to 9, we have the Christmas tree lighting downtown. We will be closing Market Street this year and trying to see how that works out for us. Appreciate Chief Bow and Lenny Branch putting together all the things that we need to do to get those streets closed safely and route traffic around that event. Also appreciate Chief Blanton supplying the fire truck, the old Big Ben fire truck, so that Santa can come to town on December 7th. On December 14th, we have the Christmas parade downtown. That's at 7 p.m. Please try to turn out for that event. We will have City Hall open again as we did last year. The restrooms will be open, and we'll make sure that we have some mild refreshments for people. Hopefully it'll be a nice night, and we can really have some enjoyable spirits for the holiday season. We have the Greenway repairs that we have been working with. RFPs have been sent out. We're starting to get those back now. We'll evaluate those this week. We have $40,000 in grant funds that have been awarded for that fix, but we're anticipating that repair may be upwards to $60,000 to $75,000. So we'll see how those proposals come back, and we'll present those to council at the earliest convenience. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The Utilities Director has reminded me that on the 19th of November at 12:01 in the morning until about 6 a.m., the power will go out in certain areas of town. That'll be consistent basically with the area of town that lost power during Hurricane Matthew. That's because that substation, what would be Duke Energy's transport line coming into town with energy, will be shut down. They'll be doing some repairs on their end. We have alerted everybody, I believe, that is going to have power outage during that time, but I wanted to pass it along again. So that if you get up in the morning, on Sunday morning after 6 a.m. and all your clocks are blinking, or you're up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden you can't turn your power on, it's not anything wrong with you. Power is going to be out for that period of time. So please be yourselves aware.
Gentlemen, we do need to go into a closed session. I know Mayor Pro Tem Ashley is not wanting to make this motion.
Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 133-318-11, 8 parentheses, 6 parentheses, to discuss a personnel matter, I move to go into closed session
Briefly.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Thank you. We'll go into closed session this time.